Welcome to War Games on Toast, all of you lovely people. It's me, it's Toast. How are you? Bespoke Warbands are the bread and butter of Warcry. The cool kid on the block who gets his head kicked in by the tough kid one block over when he gets sick of his nonsense. They look fancy, they do fancy things, and most of them get completely bodied by compendium factions the second they step into the same arena. Damn. So I thought, let's talk about them. Let's go over the 5 worst warbands in Warcry for a little bit of fun and break down why these warbands are truly awful and why maybe you should steer clear of them if you're looking to go to a more competitive focused event. But before we get into all of that, please consider leaving a like, a comment and subscribing, as that helps me fight against the dastardly YouTube algorithmic demon. If you want to help in a more tangible way, then please consider signing up to my Patreon or my YouTube members, like these wonderful people on screen now. For signing up, you gain access to behind the scenes content, monthly giveaways, and more. Special thanks to Andy Morris, who signed up this very morning. But without further ado, let's get on with the show. Quick side note, Rob signed up at the very last second, so he's been put in post-edit. Welcome, Rob.
Groovy.
When doing a video like this, it's super important to quantify what worst actually means. Lay down the groundwork so nobody is left scratching their heads. I am a simple man, and worst for me is going to cover mostly low-tier factions. Factions that have a gimmick that is hard to play well or simply don't have mechanics that mesh with the direction Warcry is currently going. This was originally meant to be a bit of fun, but it should also help new players avoid stumbling into the abyss of bad faction design. And of course, we're going to start with the Tarantalous Brood. Anyone who has spent more than 5 seconds around me in real life or on the Discord knows that I love Tarantalous Brood. They are one of my favourite factions in the entire game because their theme is so well realised and their visuals are out of this world. I spent a good month this year grinding out reps with the Brood, and man, it was a miserable time trying to get these guys to be even remotely competitively viable. But what makes the Tarantalous Brood so bad, I hear you cry? Everything. You might think I am exaggerating, being a bit hyperbolic perhaps, but let me tell you, playing Brood is like cutting off both your arms and then playing Warcry with a phantom limb.
Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look! It's just a flesh wound.
It's messy, nothing happens, and you leave feeling several layers of remorse. Every single model in Brood is overpriced. They are all made of paper. None of them can fight. Their abilities are mostly pretty bad. Their leader is so expensive, so god-awful that he directly impacts the viability of the faction and provides absolutely nothing of value. And let's not forget, their entire strategy revolves around Strength 1, Toughness 1, Wound 6 Spider Swarms. What happens most games is that you do wild things with your spiders and your ability to manipulate them with your humanoid models. Then, once turn 2 is over and all of your spiders have fallen to a stiff breeze, you instantly lose. Why? Because every single trick you had up your sleeve just died.
Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left.
And that's the best case scenario, an objective mission. If you were playing a kill mission, things would be even worse. The Brood are awful, but their action economy is kinda fun. I love them, but they suck. They make me sad, but their goofy little models pull me back in every single time. Next up, we have the Cypher Lords. Cypher Lords are amazing, their models are gorgeous, they have some really cool abilities. Games Workshop are terrified to make them good ever. Cypher Lords fall into a theme of bespoke design where Games Workshop make them fast and also make them terrible, because there are 2 kinds of fighter, apparently. Slow yet murderous, and fast yet fucking abysmal. This is the dwarf vs elf rule, and there are very, very few exceptions to this rule. Cypher Lords are entirely composed of elves or models with elf-like stats. Every single model in this faction is about 20 points more expensive than it should be. Heck, some of them are even more expensive than that. Their chaff are awful and way too expensive for what they bring to the table. Their mid-range have wonderful offensive stats, but again are way too expensive and are made of paper. Everything here is toughness 3 with 10 wounds, Not only that, their strength isn't awesome either, capping out at 4. Now, you do have access to a lot of spears and high crit, high volume of attacks. But do you know what happens when you have wounds this low and strength this average? That's right, you get countered to death. Models who are potentially 3 times cheaper than your guys can just stand still, take hits, counter, and you are just as likely to kill yourself than kill your enemy. If anything has toughness 5, you basically can't compete because none of your abilities actually increase your damage or your ability to do damage. What they do is apply inconsequential and unreliable damage to your models. Awesome, thanks for that. Okay, fine, Cypher Lord players, that's not entirely true. They have one saving grace, and that is their mobility game, and this is why they are bad. Games Workshop can't make them good because their whole everyone can fly at any time thing and we can teleport our guys is way too powerful for a faction that is actually good. All that being said, if you want to play Cypher Lords, knock yourself out. They are a lot of fun, even if they get shafted more often than not. But if you want to play something like Cypher Lords, I direct you to Ephelim's Pandemonium, a Blade-born warband for chaos that has teleportation tricks for days and is actually rather good. Now, Corvus Cabal fall into many of the same traps as Cypher Lords and the Brood. They are all overcosted for what they bring to the table, they don't do great damage, their strength is pretty darn crap, and many of their guys are really squishy. Where they really fall short though is their theme, which is all about being in high places and dropping down to murderize anything below them. What's weird, at least for me, is that most of their units don't actually benefit from that theme at all.
What? No.
Only one model can climb. Only one model can do that cool swooping stuff. And sure, they all get access to that really swanky quad, but who's going to use a quad on chaff? They are bird-living swoopers who can't climb very well, don't have access to any kind of flight, and don't get to do their cool swoopy stuff anywhere near as much as you'd like. That being said, basic Kabbalists are kinda cool. They're expensive, but 80 points for a decent spearman, or 65 for a throwaway piece of crap. Sure, it's workable. Stalkers are about 20 to 30 points too expensive for what they bring, but they have good damage and decent defenses, all things considered. Talons are comically expensive, but do have that cool swooping stuff that make them pretty decent at dealing damage, and 20 wounds is pretty nice too. 200 points for all of that is wild though. Your leader is... he's almost kind of fine. 10 to 20 points too expensive, but he's not as ludicrously overcosted as other leaders on this list. Ultimately, the Cabal need a rework. I would love to see them double down on their theme. Give them all fly as standard so they can get to high places. Crank up the benefits of being up high and then jumping down. Pull back their points a little bit, or if you can't do that because of the Bespoke Warband box size, crank up their stats. Either or will do. Cabal is really cool in theory, but they need help in their execution. The Claws of Karnak are so freaking cool. Spoiler, everything on this list is really damn cool. The claws were done dirty though. Hell, it released with the Eskergan Trueblades and they almost made this list as well. That set was visually and thematically amazing, but really dropped the ball when it came to actually playing any of those factions in anywhere near competitive level play. The Claws are also the ones who got the shit end of the stick though. Once again, everything being overpriced rears its ugly head. Not only that, the vast majority of this list is toughness 3. Now they do have high-ish wounds to make up for it, but not high enough to really make a difference. The real kicker here, or one of the many real kickers, is their chaff. They are 90 points a model and they do nothing. They have very bad defensive stats, they don't do a lot of damage, and they warp the warband in such a way that you have no scope to really bring fun toys because you can't afford to make up for all of your opulence with cheap filler. Their mid-range fighters, the brutalizers, are once again 20 to 30 points too expensive, are made of paper, and don't do anywhere near enough damage to justify their cost. Now you do have the wonderful Hound of Wrath, a cool model but one that is 18 wounds with only strength 4 and 2/4 damage, making it a little bit naff for a model that hits almost 200 points. Your leader though, your leader is kind of excellent. He's still a bit more expensive than competing leaders in other factions by about 5 points, but he's still kind of great. Can't really complain about him. He's a solid model who carries this entire warband on his shoulders. When you really look at the Claws of Karnak, their speed and their theme pushes aggression, but their stats indicate a faction that should not really be aggressive at all. Their big gimmick is chain activating models. A lot of their models can, on a double, use a restricted inspiring presence to activate other models. That model can then do the same. So in theory, you can really bully your opponent by taking multiple back-to-back turns, with obvious drawbacks like running out of activations first and not having the models to really take advantage of this ability's strengths. Overall, this is a super cool faction that just feels really undercooked.
It's fucking love!
If you want a hunt-based faction that works together to take bigger things down, consider dog-heavy Wildercore Hunters or the Royal Beast Flayers. The K-Knight Shadowstalkers are the last of the factions I am going to cover, and yeah, you better believe they are one of the coolest factions in the damn game. And yeah, you better believe they struggle because their stats are crap and their points are high. Your chaff is 90 points a model, has toughness 3, no damage stats of any worth, and only has 8 wounds. What the actual tomfuckery fuck were they thinking with that?
You make me sick!
How about the Slaughter Shades? Terrible, made of paper, underwhelming damage for their points. Why do these exist? Your leader, the Shroud Queen. Why? 210 points for these stats? A massive tax on a warband being taxed to the high heavens already. The only saving grace here are the Dark Flame Warlocks. These are not too expensive for some reason at only 105 points. They are still made of paper, but they come with 2 ranged weapon variants, and both are really cool. One fires a lot of arrows and one uses a spooky magic ring. These are both great, so take a lot of them, they're really cool. Ability wise, they don't have much that really stands out. Their reaction is really funky though, and they can all fly if they really want to, much to the dismay of the Corvus Cabal, I am sure. The Shadowstalkers overall just don't make an impact. They have been power creeped recently as well. Those Dark Flame Warlocks with crossbows, yeah, the Wildercore have those now, but better, and for 15 points cheaper. When a warband only has one good model, and that model is a worse version of someone else's model, and you have to pay a 210 point tax just to run them, well, you can't exactly consider these guys anywhere near good now, can you? And that's it. That's the end of this video. Which warbands do you think are pretty darn bad? Heck, do you disagree with what I have deemed to be bad? Let me know in the comments down below, and while you're there, please consider leaving a like, a comment, and subscribing to the channel. A huge shout out to the wonderful patrons and members who are helping keep this channel going and helping towards some new equipment that should hopefully get here in the coming weeks. It's on pre-order. You can see their names on screen now, and of course, as always, a massive shout out to the algorithmic Demon Slayers, Armor Enthusiast 7, Brioche, Head Knight of Paint, Kitty Cowan Pracker McCool, Long Run Hobbies, and Lord Phylax. Oh, and again, of course, Rob, who came in last second. Hey Rob, how's it going? I'll see all you lads, ladies, and everybody in between and beyond in the next video. Ta-ra.